Welcome, everyone, to the ScreamCast. I am your host, Sean Drager, and as always, with me is Brad Henderson.
Whatever.
Brian Sauer has gone on sabbatical again. He'll be back hopefully next week.
He's just irresponsible. Everybody should unfollow him and send him an email.
Oh, man. That's harsh. But anyway, in his stead, we don't need him on the show. We have Justin Beahm joining us on the show. Not Justin Bieber, Justin Beahm.
Oh, that's fresh, man. That's good. That's really good stuff.
Is that original?
You.
Is that original enough?
Yeah.
Well,
mention my Uncle Jim next.
Well, the reason why we mention that is because we do have, just as a joke when we very first started, I tweeted hey, Justin Bieber loves our podcast, just as a joke, and then we got a few maybe 20 or 30 followers from that and retweeting it about Justin. I'm like, whoa. Maybe we shouldn't do that.
That's a powerful kid, man. He'll come after you guys.
Exactly. Well, Justin is most known recently for his fantastic documentary on the Sleepaway Camp Blu-ray called At the Waterfront After the Social, The Legacy of Sleepaway Camp, which I was a huge fan of.
Yeah,
oh, thanks, man.
Excellent.
And Brad used his power of suggestion to get Justin on the show. So Justin, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Brad's hypnotism and stunning good looks.
That was it. I sensed something. I knew something was afoot. And I'm like, God, I just need to talk to somebody. I need to put a headset on. I don't really care who it is or what the content even references. Just give me someone. And then the email showed up. It was magic.
You're welcome.
Well, this week we are going to be discussing John Carpenter Presents Body Bags, which I'm excited to talk about and delve into further. This was my first time viewing it, so
oh really?
It's gonna be cool. Fun discussion to have about this movie. But before we get going on everything else, Brad has some Blu-ray announcements for all of us.
Do you like what you see?
I love what I see.
Would you like to touch what you see?
Yes, I would.
All right, tomorrow, Cannibal Holocaust comes out again. The one Deodato film that blew up and none of his other shit ever did.
I've never seen it.
That's my main problem with Cannibal Holocaust. It's not a terrible movie. I mean, I don't really care for it all that much, but it's like the one Deodato film that everybody knows but ignores all his other great shit, and Cannibal Holocaust is just it's just bland. I mean, it's shocking, I guess, at the time. I mean, I guess it still is, but it's just whatever. But anyways, that comes out tomorrow. 3-disc set, probably for $50.
Okay, maybe I'll finally watch it.
Yeah, I mean, it's whatever. I'll pick it up. I mean, I like Deodato, but that's the one film that I just I wish Body Count or Raiders of Atlantis or even the fucking Washing Machine comes out. I know that's on DVD over in the UK. And July 7th, Hands of the Ripper, which is already out over here, of course, but that comes out in the UK along with Absentia on Blu-ray in the UK. So if you want Absentia on Blu-ray, you got to pick up over there because that shit ain't over here. Just on the Divida, however you pronounce that. Don't laugh at me.
The Divida?
And,
huh?
Well, I know we've been talking about Scorpion releasing a lot, and
yes.
They finally gave dates on some certain titles here. Grizzly is August 5th, and alongside that from is Morgan Peter Brown's associate produced Oculus comes out August 5th. So I highly recommend picking Oculus up. I enjoyed that shit quite a bit. Lionsgate and Sony are on this one on August 19th. The Quiet Ones, which was released in theaters and I guess kind of bombed. I didn't hear very good things about that.
Really?
So I'm kind of anxious to check that one out.
I heard it was good. I just don't know if I just don't think it.
It's that one thing where people are going to be terrified at the theater. So if it's not a terrifying horror film, people say it sucks.
Right.
It's like if they're not scared or jump, they're like, movie sucks. No. There's more to it, people.
Hey, but there's another Paranormal Activity coming out, so that's going to be scary. It's going to make a loud noise in my ears.
So are you basically saying that everybody that says that these films aren't scary are kind of like a like a hillbilly.
They're all idiots. You're all idiots.
There you go.
I don't know.
Only Lovers Left Alive comes out on August 19th from Sony. If you guys know what that movie is, it's actually running at a theater near in my town, so I might go see that. Willow Creek, Bobcat Goldthwait's new film, September 9th, coming out from MPI, which is a Bigfoot movie, the Bigfoot resurgence coming around here.
Dude, how about Bobcat Goldthwait, man? Who would have thought? You know?
Yeah. I mean, I watched Willow Creek. I know people are kind of raving about it. It's okay. It's not a bad film, but found footage is always kind of getting shit on.
Right.
A lot lately, and Willow Creek is the most simple formula that most of these people follow, but it's like it was okay because it's Bobcat Goldthwait. It feels like. Yeah. It's not a bad movie, but it's not. To me, it was very, very similar to, Blair Witch, which I liked Blair Witch, and I liked Willow Creek. It was just from Bobcat Goldthwait with his hits, like, because he had like Shakes the Clown, he had World's Greatest Dad, and he had, a couple years ago he had God Bless America, which those were all like fantastic. So I was hoping that this would be a little something new to found footage, and it just felt normal.
This probably sounds like his first kind of.
Yeah, it's not bad, but it doesn't feel like Bobcat Goldthwait's name is on it.
Yeah, because his stuff is normally just out of left field and could be offensive and just kind of.
This is just kind of run of the mill found footage thing.
Okay.
September 9th, along with Willow Creek, Scorpion gave dates for Graduation Day, which our Linnea Quigley was on the show. She's in that, and Seizure is also coming out from Scorpion, released on September 9th, which is an Oliver Stone film. Kind of a horror spin, whatever. The sequel to The Dead was announced for September 16th. Silent Night, Deadly Night from Anchor Bay was announced, so that's pretty exciting. September 16th is a little big. The new, remastered again, another version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, whatever. Eraserhead from Criterion is pretty exciting too.
Yeah, that'll be great.
September 23rd is going to be Breaking the Bank. I think the 30th and September 23rd and the 30th is going to be killer because Killer Fish comes out by Scorpion releasing. We also have, of course, we've announced the Halloween box set, but along that, Warner Brothers has announced the Exorcist box set, which is, if you want to check, it's still like $25.
It's cheap, man.
On Amazon.
And
you get all 5 flicks.
Yeah, it's like a no-brainer. I mean, I know a lot of people shit on all the other Exorcist movies, other than I guess Exorcist 3, and you got all the kind of the smartasses that are, I'm just gonna get Exorcist 3.
Yeah, 3 gets the praise, right?
Yeah.
2's the one that I always get that confused.
But with box sets like this, I like to have kind of the good and the bad in these box sets, just because it's kind of fun to see the journeys that these films take. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like with the Halloween box set and stuff like that, and even the films like Exorcist, they're all over the map, but I think there's at least stuff interesting in them.
Well, that it's also putting Dominion, and I guess the other one was called The Beginning.
Yeah,
they're putting them both in the box, and if you guys know the history of those two films, they were released around the same time and have some of the same actors because it's technically the same movie. It's just that
one's the cut with the direct that got denied basically.
Yeah, they filmed the whole entire movie and then didn't like it, so they hired a new director, kind of with most of the same actors. I think Stellan Skarsgård is in both of them or something.
Oh yeah,
I've actually never seen either of them because of that whole dispute. I would just kind of when movies are in limbo and development hell like that and shit's going on, I kind of just get burnt out.
Yeah.
So I just don't. I mean, I'll check it out when the box set comes through for sure. But I'm pretty excited about how cheap it is and all the Exorcist flicks out there.
Yeah.
So, and also another one. I don't know if this is confirmed yet, but Cult Epics. They've released Deathbed, the bed that eats people recently, or I guess Deathbed, the bed that eats. Sorry.
People.
But it does eat people. Also apples and wine and other things. But October 7th, they're putting out Necromantics, which is also being released by Arrow. But that's in the UK, of course. But Called Epics is releasing over here. That's unconfirmed just yet. I haven't heard anything else about it. But I'm excited for this company because they work really, really hard with what little they have. And they're putting out some really quality titles. And I'm hoping that they kind of blow up here in the future.
Cool.
But that's the Blu-ray announcement. It's my Michael Buffer.
Wow.
You're welcome.
Wow. Justin, I wanted to kind of have our listeners get to know you a little bit. You've like I said, most notably been responsible for some special features on some of these Scream Factory Blu-rays. What brought you into doing these documentaries?
It all really began when I started writing for Fangoria about 4 years ago, just over maybe 5 years ago. And, getting out there and meeting a lot of the people in this genre and that are on the filmmaking side of it led to some relationships, one of which, a key relationship, was with Malik Akkad, who's behind the Halloween franchise. His dad was Mustafa Akkad. And Malik and I became partners in business, and so I got on as a vice president of Trancas, which is the parent company for Halloween. And then he and I also started a nonprofit foundation together called the Scare Foundation, which is now in its fourth year here. And with that, I got into special feature producing when I put together the Halloween 4 and 5 Blu-rays that came out several years ago from Anchor Bay.
Oh, okay.
And I produced and appeared on the commentaries of that, one with Dwight Little on Halloween 4, the director, and then on Halloween 5 with Don Shanks, who was Michael, which is the first Michael Myers commentary on any of these. And that experience led me to a year later, I put together and I supervised the theatrical re-release of Halloween 1978, the Carpenter original, in theaters across the country and in the UK. And with that, I had a documentary short called You Can't Kill the Boogeyman that was all about the cultural presence of the boogeyman around the world and then how it landed in the US as Michael Myers and became this sort of pop culture phenomenon. And that was a relationship with a company called Screen Vision, which does theatrical distribution on all sorts of things. They also do the trivia that you see before movies when you're in the theater, all that kind of stuff. So I ended up working with them several more times on the theatrical stuff, which was a lot of fun. I got the ball rolling a year later on Halloween 4 and 5 in theaters, and then I supervised Silent Night, Deadly Night this last December. That was in theaters just in the States here. But in the meantime, I got hooked up with Shout Factory and Scream Factory. The first release I worked on for them was Prince of Darkness, because I have a history. I've worked a lot and dealt with John Carpenter a lot and Alice Cooper as well, both of which were relevant to Prince of Darkness. And so I did the interviews with those guys on there, and then that led to I did the commentary on Town That Dreaded Sundown, which was a lot of fun. I got Jim Presley, who was the case historian down in Texarkana, Arkansas, and he and I had a great conversation on that disc. And then onward from there, I mean, it went, Body Bag, Sleepaway Camp is my most recent, on and on and on.
Nice.
That's awesome, yeah.
Yeah, I went to college for video production stuff, and I always wanted to do, special features on DVDs and stuff like that. So it's always cool when you find someone is doing it and doing it well, because I pay extra special attention to those when I'm watching a movie.
Well, yeah, I think that now especially it's a collector's market for tangible media, for physical stuff, and you have to give people a reason to pick up a disc. And it's, a 2K or 4K scan might not be enough. But when they find out that there's these new commentaries and you get, producing is a lot of fun. It's a lot of headaches, but it's a lot of fun because ultimately you're just sort of feeding yourself. You're putting yourself in the shoes of everyone else who loves this film and saying, what would I like to see? What would I like to have included? And so I pack these things. Like on Sleepaway Camp, I know some people were like, why is Jonathan's music video on there? I'm like, well, that's the story of Jonathan. My documentary on that told the story of the making of the film, which I thought was centered around their relationship. That's the most interesting thing to me, was Jonathan and Felissa's relationship there. And since then, we all know what Felissa's done. She's done a lot of conventions. She's been producing. Now she's appearing in films again. And Jonathan's track was with music. And so I thought that that was relevant. Not an obvious feature, but something that fans would probably think is cool, because they're not just fans of a film. We're fans of the people who are in them as well. The horror genre is really special in a lot of ways, and that's one of those ways.
Yeah, it's a very close community, and I mean, it's more personal at this point. A lot of times it's just not, in the 80s we're just fans and watching as many things as we get our hands on. Now we're, the 80s are over, so we're rewatching everything. And you also have to take into fact that, some of these releases from Scream Factory and other companies, some of them have had a DVD release, so you have to give reason why for people to double dip. To toss that DVD aside and get, because sometimes, like you said, like the 2K, 4K scans aren't enough. We have to have more, and I think that's why Scream Factory is, doing so well, is because they really, really try on most of their releases to, jam pack them full. So that's, I completely agree. I really dig that a lot, especially with stuff like Body Bags, because that was one of those things that had the VHS and just kind of a small DVD release from Artisan, I believe, is who put it out.
Yeah, that was
and now it's just everything we want, especially having Sandy King and John Carpenter doing commentaries. That's pretty special.
Well, we're all fans of one of the things that makes horror special is that the fans are the people who are out there are fans of the process as much as the product. So. Yeah. Unlike romantic comedies or whatever dramas, usually, I mean, there aren't books written about McConaughey's shirt, how many buttons he has undone or something like that. But you're going to find threads that have been running for 12 years on the length of the mask that Michael wears in Halloween 5.
Right.
On his neck, and also the guys who are the mechanics behind the scenes are rock stars to us. The Savinis and the Kurtzmans and all those guys, not to mention we know the names of the directors, even the producers like the Akkads in some cases. I mean, we really are very well versed in the cinema that we're enjoying in a way that I think is unique to horror and sci-fi, I'd say as well.
Yeah, I was just about to say sci-fi and horror both lend themselves to that kind of, followings. Definitely.
Now, you said you worked on the Halloween 4 and 5 Anchor Bay, which I was releases, which I was super stoked to come out, because I'm a huge fan of the Halloween series to begin with, but 4 and 5 have always been really, really special to me, and those two of my favorite films ever. And people always they're always like, "Oh man, I like Halloween," but Brad, you really like these movies a little too much, so you need to back off. But did you? I can't remember. Did you discuss in the special features of how Michael Myers' hair changes in Part 4 for like a split second?
Yeah, that's actually a great story, because it's something that fans have been talking about and speculating over for forever since the thing came out. And I remember seeing it when I was a kid, and I noticed it then. I was like, wow, this is that's blatant. That has to be obvious. And so I went into this, I went with Dwight, and it. I'm sure there's some great story behind this. There has to be something. And here I am. I'm like the archaeologist. I've come gently sweeping around whatever I've found here. I arrive at that moment in the film, and I'm like, Dwight, what is the deal with the white hair? He goes, white hair? And then it happened on screen. He goes, oh, I never noticed that before.
It's
I'm
funny.
like,
A lot
really?
of people don't. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, how would this have happened? Like, how would that mask have even been on set? And he said, and I'm paraphrasing all this, but he said something like, we had a truck that was just full of stuff, and when it came time to shoot a scene, you'd have guys run and grab a couple masks. What might have happened is that they just grabbed this other one. But I was like, why was that even there?
Yeah.
Why was there even a blonde mask there? And he said, I cannot answer to that. It might have been some sort of demo mask. I don't know. And he even said, I wish I had some romantic story to tell you about this moment in this film, but there isn't. It just simply was an oversight. So there it is.
I mean, things happen. I mean, we watch films and you try to think like, man, when they were editing, like, did the people that are watching closely, did they really notice that? Or, and I mean, shit happens. I mean, especially if it's, you don't know what the day the day was like on the set at that point. You don't know how fast production was moving. You don't know if they had, a lot of deadlines and maybe didn't have the time or money to go back and shoot some of that stuff. So,
right.
It's always nice to hear maybe, because we, as a fan, we're always looking for answers, so that way we can talk about it or have a reason why something like that happened. But
yeah, there's that. And again, that's the perspective of the horror fan. It's a eternal quest for depth in everything. There has to be a reason why this happened. There has to be, you know what I mean? And in my mind, what I've found over the time working on these things and getting to know people, and especially with Fangoria, because I've done much more with them than I have with Shout Factory and Scream Factory. You talk to these folks, and in a way, like I'm at this point right now where it's almost like, there are certain things that I like to keep the veil over. There are some, because if you know too much, if you get too much into it, and especially when you're dealing with somebody who John Carpenter does not have a romantic view of anything he's created. When he talks about them, it is so dry, like nuts and bolts, like this is why it happened. He's just brutally honest. A lot of people are very loquacious, like Dominique, who directed Halloween 5. Every moment of that film has so much heart and so much meaning behind it and everything, and he can go on and on and on. John will answer your questions with 3 words, and it'll be something like, we needed to shoot that fast, or we ran out of money, or something like that. He just doesn't paint as wide a strokes as the other guys. But there's something to be said for myth existing. There's something to be said for, like when Halloween 4 and 5 were first announced from Anchor Bay, in their press release, for some reason, they said that the Halloween 4 disc was going to contain cut scenes, like something like 20 minutes of cut scenes or something. I can't remember exactly how it was worded, which is something that was news to everybody involved. I mean, it was like, what? And then instantly the internet blows up, right? Yeah, I mean, fans' heads just imploded, and that became a discussion that continues to this day. Now the announcement of the box set, and people are still like, is that footage going to be in there? Even after we had released a press, we being Trancas Films, where I worked at the time, released a press statement saying there is no extra footage. That's not going to be included. We don't know what happened, but it was a mistake, and it's not there. But that myth continues to this day. So worst case scenario, little incidents like that, or the white hair in Halloween 4, and also in Halloween 4, Loomis's ever-changing wounds on his face. All that does is just keeps people talking, and that's a good thing.
Are you saying you don't now? You were affiliated with Transcast, right? Is what you were saying? Is that no longer, or? Yeah,
I haven't worked for Trancas for about 1.5 years now. So my official capacity with the Halloween franchise ended then. I was vice president of marketing, new media, and development, and so I was doing a lot of things, well, like I mentioned, with the Blu-rays and the theatrical re-releases, merchandise. I was in the process on a bunch of merchandise, new things at the time where that ended as well. But we just sort of drifted apart, I guess you'd say, and just found different paths. And I hopped on board with producing a lot of things and writing, and I'm directing my own stuff as well. And there's a lot happening in that realm. But yeah, I had done what I could for the franchise, I think, considering.
Well, I mean, yeah, you did a kick-ass job, especially getting 4 and 5 out there, because those really needed a Blu-ray release, and it was a nice set. I was just asking because I know that Hell Night, is one of my favorite flicks, and that's over there, and I know a lot of people ask about
Blood Beach,
Blood Beach, and of course Fade to Black.
Right.
Another one. So
yeah, and one of the things is the history of the company when it was Compass and Trancas, and then there are a number of other companies that are tied to it, and so the ownership rights on a lot of those things, it's kind of muddy, which is a problem with films in general, especially even semi-independent films back then, that no one had ever thought about the cons. You saw a film in the theater and it was done. There was no mindset of video in 1978. Thinking down the road. So on a lot of these things like Blood Beach and all that, they just figure, we're making a little quickie, it'll be inexpensive, and then that'll be that. We'll maybe make a little bit of money, and handling the materials properly can be an issue in those instances. I know that Shout Factory, for example, when they took on the Roger Corman line, they had a lot of headaches in trying to track down materials because there isn't some warehouse where things were being climate controlled, sealed away. They had to search and find here and there. So never say never on any of those titles. I mean, as we're learning, largely because of the efforts of Scream Factory, Shout Factory, and like guys like Arrow, is that anything is possible. I mean, whoever thought that we'd be seeing Ninja 3 on Blu-ray, and that it would outsell like at least a quarter of the catalog. I mean, it's pretty amazing that we're now in the age of what people describe as declining interest in physical media, that a company like Shout Factory and Scream Factory are having record years. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I just watched Neon Maniacs on Blu-ray today. Whoever thought that would happen.
So good.
You know.
Yeah, there's just certain companies that pick certain things up that you just, you feel, sometimes you feel like you're the only fan or the only, person that watches that, VHS copy constantly. And a big one for me on that was Death Valley.
Oh, that's a great film.
I thought I was the only one that liked Death Valley. And, because everyone I met, they didn't remember the box art, never saw the movie, and I was just always a huge fan. And The Town That Dreaded Sundown was, of course, more popular, but that was another one that, just was on VHS only. And, I had my big Warner Brothers box, big box, for I actually still have it because I don't want to get rid of it. But that was one of those films that always, it was a little odd how it's set up, but man, it's so good at times, so good.
That it really is, and that's one that I've always said. One of my earliest memories of being scared of a film was from that, when I was at the babysitter's house, and that was on, and I remember it was like a double shot of terror because it was that, and then right after was Dark Night of the Scarecrow.
Yeah.
That I saw like in the same day, or at least the same like several days span at my babysitter's house, and it just absolutely terrified me. And for the longest time, I didn't know the title of Town That Dreaded Sundown. I didn't have the big box. It took me a long time to find it, and then I think I ended up getting the Good Times VHS that was out briefly. I believe that's the one I have. But that is such a solid movie. A lot of people criticize the humor that was sort of shoehorned into it, but with Sparkplug's the character of Sparkplug, which is actually the director of the film, and all that. But I've always said, when people say, what movie do you think could be remade and done effectively? I think Town That Dreaded Sundown, taken completely seriously, like made into something really dark, could be incredibly effective. And that moment in that film, which stuck, for the most part, true to the history of the case, exactly what happened. It doesn't stray too far, and it treats things with reverence. It doesn't, stomp all over the names of families who would be offended or anything. It really handles things well. But the moment with the trombone against the tree with that girl is that is one of the bleakest moments in all of cinema, let alone horror cinema, I think, when the music cuts out completely once he gets that knife duct taped to the front of the trombone, and all you hear is just her gasping and the sound of him thrusting and all that with that's a scene that's unforgettable for a lot of reasons, but primarily just because it's so genuinely terrifying.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I believe that they are making like a sequel to it's called The Town That Dreaded Sundown, but it's supposed to come out like next year.
Yeah, that's kind of been under the radar, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's not being publicized, and because it's supposed to take place like 70 years later or something. Like it's supposed to be like a copycat, I believe. That's what I've read. I don't know how true that is, and I don't know, of course, who's directing it or who's in it. But last thing I heard was like in post. So I don't know. I mean, we might see like a remake, reboot, sequel of Town That Dreaded Sundown this year, next year. Yeah.
Well, when I was writing this or working on the release, I was in touch with the newspaper there in town, and I was talking with several people in the area, and they mentioned that the film crew had come down to scout locations for that. So I know that they were at least at that time, planning to shoot in that area to keep it as close to the original as possible, I guess. But honestly, it's so strange because nothing flies under the radar these days. we hear about everything long before it's released.
People try to keep a lid on it. It seems like it gets out a little bit more when people are trying to be quiet.
Mm-hmm. So I'm intrigued by it. I hope it's something really cool that leads people back to the original. That's what I always say when there's a remake. It's fine that the remake exists. No film harms another. All they can do is just help younger audiences, let's say, maybe find the source material, and then maybe begin exploring that spiderweb effect from any film. You look up one thing, who did that effect? Was amazing. And that leads you to 10 things. It's just the process.
Yeah.
And if that's going to lead people to Charles B. Pierce as well, which will be nice to, maybe get some of his and more work out there, which, I wanted to also mention. I mean, I know we're talking about body bags, but now we got on the Down the Treaded Sundown is, the Victors is another movie that's on that set. How did that come about? It was just acquired by the director, or how was that set up?
I'd have to defer to Cliff on that. Cliff is executive producer on all these, on exactly how that came together. But I know that there was discussion about whether it should be sort of listed as a 2-pack or as a bonus feature on there. And the interest in Down the Dreaded Sundown is so strong, and with similar cast, same director, on and on. It felt like a natural pairing of those two together, and I was really excited because The Evictors is another very effective movie. Really good movie. Yeah, I mean, you exist in that film. You don't just sit and watch it. And that when he's in the house with her, it gives you goosebumps.
Yeah, there's a couple like really really nerve-wracking scenes in that movie, and I think that's along with a lot of Charles B. Pierce movies is that there's a few scenes here and there, even though how goofy the legend of Boggy Creek is at times, and like the music that plays throughout the movie, it kind of detours you away from the Bigfoot creepiness. But there's a couple scenes in there where it gets really intense for split seconds, and he can change the movie in a heartbeat for you. And like you said, there's some like subtle comedy in The Town That Dreaded Sundown, and it's kind of shot as almost like a documentary sometimes. But then it's like that flip that switch, and then it gets really super serious, and it kind of gets scary.
Yeah, I think films have to have some kind of levity, even if it's just a little bit here and there. Something that's bleak from start to finish, like Von Trier's Antichrist, for example.
Right.
Which is a film It's an amazing piece of art, but you walk out of the theater wearing like a straitjacket, essentially. Because not only is it an intense film to watch, but there's not a moment where it lets up. There's not a moment where you have any kind of relief from that. And what he did with Town That Dreaded Sundown, he grew up, or he lived in that area. He worked in that area, Texarkana. And he knew the legend. In fact, he worked in the area in advertising and stuff. So he knew the legend. He knew the people who were affected by the legend. And so you have to handle that with consideration when you want to make a movie like this. All of his movies have that raw feeling. It's almost like early found footage in a way, because it is so low budget and it's done off the cuff seemingly. And it gives it that raw edge, especially with Boggy Creek. I mean, without a doubt. And then that completely blew up into a subgenre of its own. The Bigfoot film was born there. Yeah.
I'm glad it did, because I kind of dig some of the Bigfoot films there, especially the ones in the 80s. There's not many, but I mean, it's still kind of, you're right. I mean, that the Bigfoot genre kind of blew up again. There's quite a few Bigfoot movies that are out and are coming out.
Abominable is great.
Yeah.
That's a fun film.
The Lance Henriksen,
Yeah.
If you want to watch something batshit crazy, watch the Lost Coast tapes.
I could not. I was so annoyed by the end of that movie when he's like, "It's not Bigfoot. It's not Bigfoot. It's not." Good Lord.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where it's like, at least it's not as, because a lot of people are going apeshit over like Willow Creek right now, and there was another one. I forget the other one. That's another Hunting the Legend is another like found footage a Bigfoot movie that's out. But anyways, yeah, Bigfoot. Bigfoot. There we go.
With that. Hey, let's go ahead and take a musical break here, and then we'll come back and we'll dive into body bags. Sound like a plan?
Yes.
Cool. All right. let's see here. Let me get to my information.
Sorry about that stutter there. I was
No, it's all good.
For a brief second. I confused the guy I was in the commentary with Pierce, and I wish there was more stuff out there on Pierce, because he's like, when I was researching that, there's like nothing from him. There's hardly any interviews that were ever published. He was just a local guy making movies. He was just invisible to the industry. It's weird.
Well, today's featured band is called Big Daddies, and no, they're not a 90s swing band, which you may confuse them with.
Thanks for noting that, Sean.
The song I'm going to play for you is You Ain't Right, comes off of their 7-inch that is out very soon. You're listening to the ScreamCast. That was Big Daddies with the song You Ain't Right, comes off of their Singles Club 7-inch that is being put out by Negative Fun Records, and it's out right now. And I'll have links to that 7-inch in the show notes. But right now, let's move along here. Let's talk about body bags.
Two masters of horror. John Carpenter, director of Halloween, The Fog, Christine, and Memoirs of an Invisible Man. And Toby Hooper, director of Poltergeist and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Together, they bring you a frightening new tale of horror.
So yeah, John Carpenter presents Body Bags. This was a Showtime production that he was hired on to basically do a pilot, because they had an idea to do more of an anthology series. But
which would have been cool.
It would have been cool. Unfortunately, it never happened.
Yeah, but we did get pretty fun anthology movie, right?
Yeah, I really dug it. I haven't seen too many anthology movies, which is weird because I really like I really like anthology movies, but I haven't seen a whole lot. But I don't know what my problem is.
Sean, there's some good ones out there. Trust me.
I know. That's what I hear.
But yeah, this is one that's I don't know. It's one of the earliest anthology films that I saw, and it was in the first batch of Carpenter flicks that, when I was going through. Because I discovered Carpenter when I was like 7 or 8. I mean, I saw Halloween earlier on in my life, but when I actually knew who it was, that turning point, because I remember discovering George Romero and John Carpenter, and that's when I tried to track down everything. And it was kind of hard to find a VHS of this back in the day, if I remember correctly. So yeah, I had that, and then I had the DVD, and now this.
Yeah,
pretty happy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks for agreeing with me. Thanks for agreeing with me, Sean.
No, I really dug this thing. I was happy to actually see. I'm trying to figure out how we should talk about this, because there's 3 separate stories. Do we talk about each separate story, or what do we? What do you guys think?
Well, I mean,
yeah, I think so.
Justin's the professional in this one. So.
Well, Justin, I wanted to
let him have the conversation.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about this because Brad was telling me that you're somewhat responsible for this coming out on Blu-ray. So is that a rumor? Is that myth, or is that actually true?
No, it is. It is. This is something that in working with Carpenter over time, we've done a number of things together, and he was on the board for the charity and everything. And I had asked about body bags at one point, and they had, I guess, a deal set up with someone else at some point that didn't work out well. And back when it was originally released, you mentioned Artisan, and that it was honestly almost a surprise to them when it happened, to John and his wife Sandy, because not only were they not aware of when it was being released, but also the artwork for it was never approved by them, even run by them, and it was released in a cut version.
Yeah.
So it was really a bad situation, but they have held on to the rights to it. So while this was for Showtime, it was actually their production company that backed the movie, and they basically they made it themselves. And it was not actually, unfortunately, a pilot for something. That after they shot it, it was a one-off, and Showtime did approach them about making it into a series, but their concept behind it just wouldn't have worked because they wanted to move it up to Canada.
Okay, right.
Showtime did do it for cheaper and all this, and they were just like, look, part of the reason for the magic of this is all the faces, the recognizable faces from, throughout the whole picture. I mean, in each one of the segments, it has a lot of faces that we know, and that's because they were shooting with friends around the Los Angeles area who would just show up for a day. Yeah, sure, no problem. Yeah, I'll be happy to dive in on that. And so in John and Sandy's perspective, it was a one-time deal. It was something they could have fun with, maybe make a little bit of money, and they get to play in a sandbox that he doesn't normally, something that they wouldn't have to take quite as seriously as a lot of his films are viewed. And he had a lot of fun doing it. He, of course, did the first segment in at the gas station, and then he was the coroner who's the host, sort of the crypt keeper that is in the wraparound throughout the whole thing. So it was him on and then it was also on the first two, and then Toby Hooper on the third.
Yeah, the I one, the Toby Hooper. I was always, I never thought the way they set it up, which each story, the I shouldn't have been last. It wasn't a strong last segment for me. That was the only thing, because I really enjoy the Carpenter ones. But that was just always my thing, is that the I was always kind of, I don't know. I just can't take Mark Hamill seriously sometimes, I guess.
Really? I think he's great. I think he's really good in that. I like him in that, and there's this movie called like Slipstream or something. It's a sci-fi movie. Yeah, and I really like that. Those are my two favorite performances from him, actually.
It made me wish there was more, Mark Hamill, that he didn't get kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know. He just. Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and talk about the segments here. I think that would be the best way to. Yeah. I think dive into this movie. So,
well, before, if I may,
go ahead.
Real quick to finish out the answer.
Yeah.
It's taking like the long way to the answer. So when I started working for Shout Factory and Scream Factory. And I was really thrilled with how they were treating all these titles. And the reason why this brand is special is because Cliff and Jeff, the two guys, the heart of the operation, the two-valved heart, they're passionate about this, just like we are. Their wish list would look just like all of our wish lists for all these things. And so when you have people behind the scenes who are able to make the decisions on stuff, and they trust the people that they hire, that they bring in, like Cliff, brings in like me as a producer, for example, and then everyone's pouring their all into every one of these titles, which really, it's a lot different than other companies I've worked for. And when I approached John and Sandy about it, and I said, hey, I know that there hasn't been a good opportunity in the past, something didn't work out, but would you be game for entertaining the idea of it being released by these guys? And they, of course, knew that Shout Factory was doing Assault on Precinct 13, done The Fog, Halloweens 2 and 3 and all that. So they were aware. It was definitely on their radar. But then I talked to Shout Factory and talked to Cliff, and he's like, oh my gosh, yes, please, let's all talk. And so I brought everyone to the table. We had some conference calls that led to the deal being made, and then just a matter of, getting those elements in hand. And then I started assembling all of the production side of it with the documentary that was on it, new commentary, which was a lot of fun. And we have the uncut version, new transfer, yada, yada, yada. So that's kind of how it came to be. And one of the stipulations from John was that he did not want that original artwork included. He hates that image, the completely unrelated image of this ghoul guy crawling out of a body bag.
Right.
He was like, that, as long as that's not associated with it, we're cool. And then he had a couple notes on the cover art as it was going through the different stages. But in the end, I think that cover is one of the best ones that Shout's had, or that Scream rather has had.
I love this. Yeah, I love this cover.
Yeah, it has something from each one, and it's. I'm actually looking at it right now, and just the detail on Carpenter's face is just great.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that you jumped on, because that was one of my questions was why not the original artwork? But there you have it, folks. That's why. Because
the original artwork sucks.
And you don't say no to John Carpenter.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's no arguing at all at that point. So, especially, if he went through that and didn't enjoy it the first time, why would he want, especially if it's going to be presented, in a way that he would want, obviously. And obviously there was a lot of there was a featurette that was like 20 minutes or so on it with John Carpenter and some of a couple of the actors, and of course the audio commentary for the gas station, and he did one on hair with Stacy Keach, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was with Carradine on the gas station, and then with Stacy on hair, and then it was Sandy and me and Sandy on the eye, which I'm happy to explain that if you.
Yeah. Did you approach Tobe Hooper about this, or?
I did, and he was on board, and then he was off board, and then he was back on again. In fact, I had it was to the point where it just ended up where he wasn't comfortable talking about it for some reason, and I found out just a couple days before we were to record, which was a little bit of a challenge for me. And the same thing happened, incidentally, with Mark Hamill, because I had been talking with his people, and they were feeling out the whole process, like, so how does this work? And so what would he need to do? Would he need to go somewhere? And I'm like, well, we can make it comfortable for him, whatever we need. And at the last minute, I get this email saying that he's just not interested in being a part of it. And so I was really saddened by both, because especially Mark. I mean, because Toby, some of his commentaries are a little dry. He's not a real talker. And if you have a good commentator or someone to moderate with him, that can pull a lot out of him. But I would have loved for him to have had a chance to talk about this. And to have he and Mark together was just a dream team that I think would have been fantastic. But it came down to the day before, and I found out about Toby because it was down to me and Toby doing the track together. And when he backed out, I called up Sandy, and I'm like, Sandy, because Sandy was the producer. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Sandy has a photographic memory. She, even as John was sitting there doing commentary with Stacy or with Carradine, she and I are sitting out behind the control panel, just on our phones and whatever, or just talking. And she's saying, she's telling the rest of the story that John might begin telling. She's like, well, yeah, there's that part of it, but also you forgot about this part. So I knew she would be a real fountain of information. And she's been a driving force behind a lot of his films. And this was one of the early forays for them as a producing team. And so she deserves to have that time on there. And she's a wonderful person.
Killer team, yeah.
Yeah, she's great. She's just really great. And so when she and I got on there, I think that it unfortunately isn't Toby, but at the same time, it touches on a lot of things that the rest of the segments didn't. So
yeah. Let's briefly go through these segments here and talk about them. The first is
you really want to go through these segments, don't you?
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to keep the show going. I do want to. I want to get into some technical specifics. I do want to talk about some stuff like that, but I do want to get our thoughts on, these actual the segments here. There's the wraparound with John Carpenter, which I thought was just awesome.
Blast.
Just so fun.
So fun
to watch him kind of almost unhinged, to be a character actor. And it made me wish that John Carpenter acted in more things. Yeah. It looks like he was having a blast. What did you guys think of the morgue assistant, the dead morgue assistant?
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where it's completely out of what you would think John Carpenter would do. Because I mean, unless you've actually met him, which I have recently, and you hear stories and things like that. From the outside, he kind of looks business. When I was little, I just I didn't even know that was Carpenter at first. And when I found out, I was like, what? Like, really? Like, I'd always think he was like, stern and hardcore on the sets, but it's just huge lighter side for him, and he like nails it too. And that role's just so fun and brings a whole different perspective to the movie, especially watching those scenes. So I've always really dug it and loved it.
I feel the same way. I think he's fantastic, and I know that he has earned a reputation as being kind of tough and gruff especially over the last 10 years or so, as he's done some conventions and there have been various issues, whatever. But really on set, he's a prankster. He's goofing around the whole time. He'll go up. I remember when I was my first interview with him was on Christine for Fangoria a number of years ago, and we were talking about how he would goof on the rest of the crew. He would drive the audio guys nuts because he was constantly messing with their gear. So they would flip out because they're on a Carpenter film. So they start freaking out when something happens. Little do they know that as they walked away to grab a piece of equipment, he had unplugged 3 cables and gotten back in his seat and sat down and just watched like a little brat kid in the corner after, putting something in the teacher's drawer.
Wow.
And that's how he is. He's on set, flicking lighters under people's seats so their butts get hot and all things like that. So, and the greatest prank, this is another side road, apologies, but on Christine, the producer had this prized Porsche that he drove to set. And when they were almost finished, they were doing all of the bulldozer stuff, crushing Christine in the warehouse. And he had a tarp, like this car cover that he put over his Porsche every day. He'd get there and, wipe off any fingerprints, put this cover over it. They'd shoot at night. He'd fold it up, put it in the trunk, and take off. Well, John had some crew members that came and got on board with him in this prank, and they lifted the car cover. They parked some junk car underneath it, and they moved the Porsche around the block. So at the end of the shooting day, they all walk out there, and the bulldozer comes screaming out of the warehouse. Up on top of it, smashes the car. And the producer is just like, what is it? He flips out, and everyone busts out laughing because they pull the cover off, and he can tell that it's not his car. That's how elaborate he's willing to get with just having fun on set. And so him stepping into the role as the host of this was a natural extension of his already goofy personality.
Well, I kind of got a feeling of that personality just from the bits of the audio commentary. You hear that jokester, part of him on his commentaries. It's pretty fantastic. Especially
on Big Trouble.
Yeah.
On Big Trouble in Little China. That is one of my favorite all-time commentaries. Yeah. It's in Kurt Russell are just fantastic. And they hardly talk about the movie.
Anything with him. Yeah. It's the same way like with The Thing and Escape from New York. They're sitting back and, John smoking cigarettes, and they just chill out and just talk. And you can like really tell these guys are incredibly close and good friends outside of filmmaking.
Yeah. And that time with he and Stacy together there was really special. And they're really close with the Carradines, but seeing Stacy, they hadn't seen each other in a long time, and so that was really special to see them kind of reunite.
Nice.
And some of their track was spent catching up, and Stacy shared some very intimate stories about some things that have happened to him in the documentary that I made as well. That's on there, where he confides that hair was a little closer to heart than many would suspect, and we can certainly touch on that when we get to that segment.
Yeah, definitely.
I actually rewatched that one because I went back and watched because after I found out because I've watched them before, but your name didn't like really hit hard on some of these things. And then, when we started talking, I went back to watch them all, and I was like, damn, you're really fucking tearing it up with these things. So if Scream Factory does listen to this thing, you need to hire Justin for more shit for sure.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. No, and that's the weird thing. I grew up as a drummer in bands, and when you're the drummer, you're not there for the spotlight. You're there to play. Unlike a singer or even a lot of times a guitarist. And in this kind of work, in this field, you don't go in as a producer of Blu-ray extras for the fame. And so there isn't a lot of name recognition with it, which is why it's special when someone like you guys, you're reaching out is really nice. And there are guys like Michael Felsher, who is should be an icon in the industry. And a lot of people know who he is. He's Red Shirt Productions.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that guy is so prolific with a lot of these things for a lot of companies, and guys like him need to have more attention. I mean, they're a large part of the education of the fan base.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Fortunately, all too often they go unnoted because their name appears at the end of a special feature credit somewhere that a lot of people don't get to. They might hit stop after the main bulk of it's over. So thank you for the comments and for the attention. Yeah,
of course.
No problem, man. Let's
dive into the next segment here is the gas station, which I really liked this segment. It kind of like you guys said, the hair one strikes a nerve too, and we'll talk about it too. But this one, strikes a nerve with me because I used to do some overnight shifts at a TV station. I worked overnight. I used to drive. I worked for bands, and I used to drive the bus while everyone's sleeping, and it's just me driving the bus and going to a gas station by myself in the 2 a.m, things like that. So I could really relate to this woman's first day on the job as a gas station attendant,
Yeah.
Played by Alex Datcher, and having things kind of be just a little bit off, during her shift, and especially the scene where she locks the keys inside and realizes that she's locked out. That really struck a nerve on many levels with me, because that's the one thing you kind of fears, leaving my keys in the bus or whatever when I was doing this, or locking myself outside the TV station that I worked at in the middle of a city. This one was pretty great. I really liked it. What do you guys?
It's just an eerie setting. Number one, a gas station, of course, being the first, being a woman, at that isolated gas station, just alone, doing that job for the first night. And then, of course, you have creepy things that pull up. Wes Craven has a cameo, or
he's great.
Plays a drunk.
He's really good.
Yeah.
David Naughton.
David Naughton pops
Sam
up.
Raimi.
Well, Sam Raimi is essentially he's in a locker the whole time.
Oh,
but,
Peter Jason. Peter Jason plays the drunk guy who just keeps on. He kind of harasses her a little bit, but obviously he's he's not going to hurt her. She doesn't feel threatened by it, but it's just so much is going on, and you just know that something's going to happen, but you just don't know when.
And they set up, and they use Buck Flower, who I love. He's one of my all-time favorite character actors. I always adore him. But Buck Flower, he's sort of your red herring that you have set up in it as well. And it's just it becomes this series of cameos that you're just like, who else? And then wow, and then wow. And in the uncut version, we're getting all of Wes Craven's FaceTime, which is fantastic. Yeah. He's so good in this segment. And I think you mentioned you on the bus being able to relate to this. I think we can all relate to this story, because replace the gas station with your basement when you're a kid and the lights are turned off, or the first time you go to the pool at night and you're walking home or something. This is life. This is a very primal fear that we have of being out of our element and not knowing what to reach for, not necessarily sure what's around us. And this is, I think, as close to sort of the Halloween vibe as John ever got in those in his later.
It takes place in Haddonfield too.
Well, it's a really nice little, it's a tidy little story, and I think that casting Robert Carradine against type is a masterstroke, and he is wonderful in this and totally sinister.
Yeah. Well, I think
agree.
This kind of thing shows like the strength of anthology, films with these different short stories, and because there's no way this would be a feature-length film, but it's just perfect. It's the perfect length, and it's the perfect scenario, to fit into this. It's pretty fantastic.
There's so many, even just the shot of him breaking the glass with that sledgehammer. It cracks perfectly, and just after he gets it down, and it's just he just strolls in. Yeah. It's whatever. And it's just, I don't know. Like you said, Robert Carradine, he hits that so perfect. Yeah. Perfect role.
I was thinking during that scene when he's trying to break through the glass, I was like, finally we see what it's really like to break through plate glass. It's not this fake movie glass that we always see in movies. They actually did the real thing, and he's actually breaking through that plate glass with a real sledgehammer, and it's the real deal. And I thought that looked so great. I know there's a safety issue and everything with filming these, but I thought it just looked fantastic, and it added so much real kind of tension to the scene, But yeah.
He was so excited to do it. He was just he's like, really? I get to, yes, let's do it, And you see his face, the joy in his eyes as he's smashing through this glass and everything. And this segment has a lot of these signature Carpenter components built into it. The wet streets, the isolated heroine, the yada yada yada. He's the jump scare here and there. It's shot. It's just classic Carpenter. Bottom line, it's classic Carpenter.
Yeah, even Robert Carradine does the Michael Myers setup
Yeah.
You know,
putting the body in the locker so it's going to fall out and everything.
Yeah.
Sure.
Just everything about it. I mean, and that's why I always say, like, with certain films like this, and just our last episode, you know, I almost present these movies as John Carpenter and Friends, you know, because that's what it feels like. He just gets together with his friends, but you know, everything he does with all these same actors, none of it feels the same.
Yeah,
and that's what I've always loved about it. He uses the same people most of the time, but none of it feels the same, and that's what I love about it so much. Let's
talk about the next one, and this was another John Carpenter directed segment, and it's Hair, and this is with Stacy Keach, and this is like a Twilight Zone, like more of a humorous Twilight Zone type story.
Yeah,
and it's great. It almost makes you wish John Carpenter would attempt more kind of comedic, you know.
A little more satire.
Yeah,
he's good at it too. I mean,
of course, there's, you know, he's done it in the past, but this just kind of shows that he is good at it, you know.
Yeah, it feels that he was really like that's a good thing is like you said, Sean, like the Twilight Zone. It's like he was channeling that when he. This one.
And the reason it works is because it stands on the foundation that is Stacy Keach.
Yeah.
That he completely bought into and invested in that portrayal of this guy. I mean, the moment where he's unraveling his hair for the first time, taking the bandage off, and he starts laughing as he's slowly undoing it, and then that clump falls down, and he just loses it with glee. It's such a great moment for him and such a fun scene, and it's played silly from front to back. It's not taking itself seriously whatsoever, and you have some great cameos in that. You got Debbie Harry, even Greg Nicotero. He's the guy with the long flowing hair and the sort of musical montage portion of it. You know, you got Sheena Easton, who hardly ever acts, but was great in this. David Warner. I mean, it's a really solid cast again. And like you said, it would fit perfectly on let's say like Monsters, Tales from the Dark Side, Twilight Zone kind of a thing. It's a fun segment that I think is a little misunderstood by people who are just looking for horror out of this. It's the one I hear about the most often. Like, oh, isn't that the one with that hair? And I'm like, and you know what's funny is that when this came about, that script was the one that Toby and John kind of were like, oh, I want it. Okay, you have it. It was that kind of, because they both were so attracted to it, and that's the one that John read first, and the reason why he signed on to the project is because he got a chance to direct Hair. Gas Station actually came after that in his decision to do this stuff. So this was what drew him to the whole thing.
And Stacy Keach was saying that because at the time he was really concerned about losing his hair, and his parents had always told him, you're never going to make it in Hollywood if you lose your hair. You're supposed to, wear a hairpiece, do whatever, and I think this is something that guys that are in our age range especially start thinking about more. I mean, some of my friends have already lost their hair. They started in their 20s, so this is something that us guys are always thinking about,
lost my hair at a young age, Sean, so thanks for bringing that up.
I'm sorry, Brad. I'm sorry.
The scars are deep, man. The scars.
well, it's just something, I mean,
it's
a very important subject matter for us guys.
Podcast is over. I'll see you guys later.
Well, like Keach, he says in that it was cathartic for him, and even because he had said he had tried plugs, all these other remedies that never did anything for him, and he tells a really neat, kind of fun story about when he was doing Shakespeare, and he was Socrates, and it was on stage live, and the guy across from him, they're having a sword fight, swung a little too high, and he had been wearing a toupee at the time. And the toupee goes flying out into the audience with, and he's like, he was just so mortified. He's like, you know what? I'm going natural from here on out. I'm done with this stuff. I'm done with it. So when John asked him to do this film and to be a part of that, he just leapt at the chance. He's like, well, I am that guy. I know this. And of course it would go wrong for me too if I were to try. But so he really had a great time with it.
Yeah.
Stacy Keach is for, really, really hits, like you said earlier, Justin, is that like when he's taken off the thing, and it's just he really like takes on the role of what's his name, Richard or something in the movie, I think it was, But anyways, yeah, I always dug Keach's performance in this, even though it is goofy and you're coming off of the gas station segment and into this, but in Carpenter's world, it's okay. Mm-hmm. You got to look at it that way. You got to look at it as it's a Carpenter back-to-back short films, and I think if you go in that way, you'll actually, I'm gonna say you like it more, but if you're just aware of that, I think it puts you in your place instead of thinking it's going to be all straight horror.
Yeah. I was in this, were those little hair worms that show up? That was stop motion, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was great. I always love seeing stop motion, show up in films. And it looked good. I had to kind of, pause it and look at the year this was released and go, is that CGI or is that stop motion?
Yeah, it's really good. And it's subtle touches.
Yeah.
Like the when Sheena Easton leans down to kiss him on the head after he's painted all that black on,
right.
And she comes up and her face is covered with the black, and he looks at her and he laughs, and that laugh was totally real in the moment. And that's just how it felt the whole time. Is that everyone was just having a hoot with this thing.
Yeah.
And Nicotero included, with his crazy cameo. But the stop motion effects were fun. The progression of Keach's sort of disintegration physically is neat, and it's really great makeup. And when he's finally sitting in the office, just dead to the world, staring at the camera as they're doing whatever they're doing to his head, you almost are with him at that moment. You're like, my God, what a miserable way to end up
Exactly.
after such a stupid thing to do.
Right.
It's so well done. and Roger and Kim Alexis is also in that segment, and David Warner is another one that's not even obvious to be in something like this. No one's looking for David Warner to be in an anthology horror film, but he clearly is just chewing on everything as he's in the, he's having a blast as well.
Yeah, it's great. All right, and finally, the last segment is called I, and this is a segment where Mark Hamill plays a baseball player who, due to an accident, has to get an eye replacement surgery, and the eye that was put in his head has kind of a sketchy backstory. It's basically the setup for that one. And this one, I know, Brad, you said you didn't really like the placement of this one. For me, it kind of makes sense because Body Bag starts off with the gas station, which is a little bit of a thriller. Then it moves into more of a comedic, and then I see where they're going, trying to end it on kind of more of a straight horror, about this guy who basically starts going crazy to this eye transplant. I thought it was okay. It's definitely, for me, not the most memorable out of the three. But like we said earlier, I loved seeing Mark Hamill, and I thought that he did a great job with it, and it just made me wish that he would have been in more movies, kind of more straight movies, than his kind of career path, has taken him. And we're going to finally see him on the big screen again here with these new Star Wars movies they're working on, so that'll be interesting. But this segment, I thought it was all right. It wasn't, it wasn't anything scary or anything like that. It just kind of goes to some dark places, So, what did you guys think about this segment?
I don't want to talk about I anymore.
Talked about it enough.
It's okay. I mean, it's one of those things where I actually like the cameos is what it was big for me, because Twiggy's in it, of course Roger Corman, Charles Napier, the guy that played in Tarantula, what was his name? Whatever. He was Sands of Iwo Jima. I don't know. He plays one of the doctors, anyways. But it's one of those things where it's just little cameos and stuff. It's fun. I don't know, I just can't buy Mark Hamill in that role. I don't know. It's just maybe it just hit me that way. I've watched it. I've seen Body Bags probably 10 or 12 times in my life. It's always I always watch it, but I always dread getting to it a little bit.
Well, it's hard. It's an intense segment. The other ones, both of them, even the gas station has some moments in it of levity with those characters that come in. But this one it's just unrelenting from the start, and it's so intense, and he goes so over the top with his mania when he's laying in the crib rolling around and stuff like that. And I mean, it's different for Tobe Hooper as a director, and it's an unusual thing to include in something like this, I guess. But honestly, I think it's a nice way to end it. I wouldn't have ended with hair. I think people would have stopped probably the VCR by that point. And I think that Hamill's really good, and especially with the uncut version you're seeing here, that you're seeing more of the nude body in the backyard that comes up out of the grave and some things like that. So it's interesting for its simplicity. It's an interesting little story.
Yeah, it's at some point we get to see little testes in there too, don't we?
Thank God for unrated. Yeah, right. Uncut indeed.
Hamill testes.
Yeah. Real selling point.
Yeah, that's Hamill testes is definitely a way. Yeah.
Hamill toe. That's perfect.
Oh, dude, I'm going to start saying that from now on. Oh, God.
Should make a t-shirt.
Yeah, definitely. That's never going to... If we ever open a ScreamCast store, we will have Hamill toe t-shirts, I promise you.
Definitely. I've just jotted down a note.
And Justin will get a cut of that.
Yes.
We'll get a percentage, sir.
Good. Real good.
Oh, man. So as a whole, I had a ton of fun with Body Bags. So...
Yeah. If you're a fan of Carpenter, I mean, there's no going wrong with it at all. Yeah.
And don't forget at the end, too, how the wraparound comes around, where when you realize that he's not just some ghoul, that he climbs in the bag. And who are the morgue attendants?
Oh, it's Tobe Hooper and...
Tom Arnold.
Tom Arnold, yeah.
Who are both so great. And Tobe Hooper gets freaked out by the blood. He's like, ugh, and he walks away. Like, this is Tobe Hooper. And that's part of what makes that work so well. But those two just had a lot of fun, too. That's what Sandy was saying, is that they were hamming it up the whole time, and it was hard to get even a semi-serious take out of them because they were having such a blast with it. And it's a nice way to end it, too. And John screaming into the camera as it zooms up, and then it cuts to the credits. And part of the thing with this release, I have read a couple of reviews, and the reviews are genuinely very positive. But the one thing I've heard is, why isn't there more material here? What I counter that with is, you're getting the uncut version, which has never been released on video before, a new transfer of the film. And this wasn't something like Halloween where there was a lot of time for them to do additional shooting. There wasn't a set photographer snapping shots away. There weren't a lot of fully cut sequences from the picture. They're just, especially having released it uncut, you're seeing all that there is to see.
Yeah.
And because there was no big promotional campaign, because it didn't run in theaters, this was just on Showtime. So it's even less of a promotional vehicle than a direct-to-video release would be, because this is just screening on a television network. So all you had were the little TV spots, which we included, and that was it. So it isn't that there was any less effort put into this in terms of a supplementary material. It was just a matter of there not being much there, just by the nature of what this thing is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I do want to get into some of the technical aspects. I don't want to dive in too deep. We've talked a lot about the film transfer and a lot of the special features. But one thing that we did hear through when we said we were going to be covering this, we had the first time I had heard about it, because I hadn't watched it yet, one of our listeners, what's his Twitter name? Mr. Griggles?
Yeah, something like that.
He was starting to watch it and noticed that there was some audio distortion, and he was asking around, did anyone else notice some audio distortion? And of course, once I popped it in, I noticed right away, because part of I come from a production radio and audio background as well. And you can hear it on the S's when people, are talking. What, were you guys aware of this audio issue? Was this just kind of how it was given to you? 'Cause I guess I'm unaware on how Scream Factory, Shot Factory get the transfers. You know what I mean? Is it kind of this is what you're being given by the studio or whoever owns the rights and make the most out of it? Or, how does that process go?
It just depends on the release and where it's coming from. Right. This was a case where John owns this film outright. And so he had the materials in hand for it. And so there was no other place to go outside of him.
Right.
And also keep in mind, again, there's prints of this. There's a print. There are the original reels. I mean, it's like, so it wasn't something that has done theatrical anywhere. So you can't like find one tucked away in someone's collection in New York because they just don't exist. Mm-hmm. And what happened in this instance is that we had to use, or Shout Factory rather, had to use the optical audio track as opposed to the original audio track from it. And that's because the original audio track, for whatever reason, again, we talk about these things no one was thinking back then necessarily about. In 2013, we're going to release this thing in HD with blah, 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 blah. So it was, so instead of using the original audio track, which wasn't there, an optical track had to be used, which is basically off of the print of the film. And it's not ideal. It's not what you want to have like a pristine audio transfer. But honestly, until you guys mentioned it, I had never been approached about that before. And I hadn't, but then I put it in with a friend of mine, so I wasn't the only set of ears in the room,
right?
And we could hear a little bit of that on the S's. We definitely could.
It's mostly just in the gas station scene.
Right.
It's most
It does. I know people were saying maybe we're just getting used to it, but I think it does disappear. About a quarter way in.
I felt the same way. Yeah, and I. With that, being considered, you're getting this film uncut, and the transfer is absolutely gorgeous on it.
Yeah,
the audio, it's not like, I mean, geez, I've heard things before where there'll be like a buzzing sound, or sometimes like just it'll cut out for momentarily here and there. So all things considered, for a film that was never intended to see the light of day ever again, really, that was kind of pulled out of the grave here. I think it's an acceptable audio track, I think, for most people to still enjoy the film.
I think so.
Well, to be fair, it was on the DVD as well. Like there was hissing on the DVD. So when people said that, because I when I first listened to it, I was just used to it. Like what didn't really bother me. I'm not a huge audiophile where I'm like, oh my god, there's buzzing, I can't watch this. But going back, I still had the DVD. I popped it in and. I could hear it then, but then I like started doing a little research, like on Blu-ray forums, and like everybody was kind of on those forums that were discussing it. But I mean, there's nothing. I mean, it's not that bad to where it's unbearable or prevents you from getting the release, because like we mentioned countless times on this show that they are given, and this is a prime example. I mean, this is from Screen Factory right now. What Justin's saying is that they are giving so much, and they have to work with what they have to present. And if there's a little buzzing or a little film distortion, you're still preserving the film, and it's still giving it another so many years for film preservation where it's not going to go away, and that's what we need. So
yeah,
and this is a great opportunity to discuss something that I feel very strongly about, and that actually perplexes me, is that there has been a turn in the horror community toward the negative, and I don't understand the reasoning behind it, and I don't know how it happened. It seems like a slow de-evolution on it, but it is almost like it's just status quo now to go in disliking something and then work your way into liking it, as opposed to the opposite way. So here we are in an age where we're having, I mean, geez, we would all go broke if we were trying to buy every Scream Factory and Shout Factory release.
I am going broke.
Yeah.
Trying to buy every
we are broke, Justin.
Yeah, right. Well, and it's not even just Scream and Shout. It's just all these companies. It's Code Red. It's Synapse. It's all these great companies that are out there releasing this stuff for us. We never would have dreamed that we would have seen this day, where we had this much stuff that we loved, things that we never thought we'd get to see in any, especially with any kind of additional clarity. And instead of enjoying things for what they are, instead of being okay with, I've heard people say there aren't enough features. Like when Halloween 4 and 5, when I did those two, there was a lot of complaints about there not being enough features. And there's a lot that goes into these things. And sometimes budget doesn't play in your favor, or the distribution company and the ownership company don't want to play ball. There's all kinds of reasons why things happen. At the end of the day, I think a lot of people forget that there's a film on the disc.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of people are losing sight of the reason why they even at the ball. Like, why did you even show up here at the dance if you're not going to? Like, you came into this as a fan. You discovered these things at a time in our life when we were open to anything, and just about everything was amazing. As teenagers, most of us, or younger, in lots of cases. And I don't know for the life of me why it has turned into this flame war online, endless message board complaint threads about the smallest technical details about something, where people are measuring bit rate on Blu-rays and putting graphs on their reviews saying, I'm not happy with the bit rate. Like, what the when did this happen?
Yeah,
when did we fall off the rails?
Thank you for fucking mentioning that, because it's one of those things that bother me too. And there's like a huge wave. And when I say huge with a community, I mean it's still a great number, and it's still like it's sometimes the bad outweighs the good, and things like this. It's that people are like, oh, Scream Factory's releasing another movie that's been on DVD. What the fuck, man? It's HD now. Like, we have, a killer track. Like, who the fuck cares if it's been on DVD? Like, I mean, the whole point is for quality to get better and better and better. And, they are putting out, stuff like Death Valley and, Ninja 3 and, The Town That Dreaded Sundown, stuff that's never been on, Without Warning's coming out as well.
Mm-hmm.
All these titles that haven't been on any other format other than VHS or not VHS, nothing at all. It's just like they can't sit back and appreciate the fact that there are people out there that are just like us, sitting right here, that are discussing horror films to, all hours of the morning. This is what we love to do. That people like Vinegar Syndrome and like you said, Code Red and all these Scorpion Releasing and Kino, just digging up the dirt and just putting out just the rarest films. Instead of being appreciative, they want to fucking criticize every small little aspect on it. And it's like, are you that technical when it comes to stuff? Like, but you're okay with like popping in VHS tapes,
right?
Which I am too. I love watching VHS tapes, but like, are you really gonna fucking criticize like all the hard ass work that goes into these things?
Yeah,
I felt this especially when I was dealing with the Halloween stuff, because I was doing the website, all the social media, and all that as well, and. Man,
because you think people are going to be appreciative. You think that they're like, oh, because like when I saw like a scrolling through and I saw Halloween 4 and 5, I just fucking jumped for joy. I couldn't care less if they're bare bones Blu-rays. I could care less, if they were stacked. I get the movie that I want in the newest format and best format.
And it's also about preserving the films as they were meant to be seen, because a lot of times there's a lot of producer meddling. Like Halloween 6 is a good example of this, where the producers come in and they reshoot, they cut, they whatever they want to do to something, and the director ends up sitting in the theater on the premiere going, what the fuck is this? And that's all too often the case, like Carpenter with Body Bags. He's always been very unhappy with that video release being cut, bad artwork, yada, yada, yada. So this is a chance not just for fans to get something they don't have for their collection. It's also a chance for filmmakers to finally have control over their product.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of this is about. And that's a rare opportunity.
Yeah.
Because you don't see painters having some asshole walk up and rub their fingers all over their painting and walk away and go, now it's done. It just doesn't happen. But in film, that's okay.
Yeah.
And that sucks. But it's not even just about Blu-rays and DVD releases. I mean, anytime I would mention anything about Rob Zombie in relation to the Halloween franchise, it tripped the biggest triggers in so many people, and it's as though Rob went into the vaults, found the original elements of all the films that came before his and burned them, and then went into everyone's homes like Santa Claus, pulling all their DVDs and Blu-rays off their shelves, throwing them in a bag, and absconding into the night, like disappearing with their stuff, so they can never watch what they love again. One film does not harm another.
No,
you said that earlier. I wanted to repeat that.
Yeah, no film ruins a franchise. It's impossible.
The film's bad, or you don't like the film, you don't like the film.
You just don't watch it.
Remakes happen all the time. Is the remake good? No. Is the remake good? Yeah, it might be, but it doesn't alter anything with the original. Like when it makes you want to watch the original more. At that,
Yeah, and then so zoom out. if you were to make a list of movies that you would love to see, and not even in HD, even if you're not even thinking about that, but you want to know the stories behind them. And historically, companies like the Friday the 13th franchise, for example, was criminally underserved forever with their video releases, where they just didn't have a lot of bonus materials at all, short of a trailer on any of their videos or DVDs. And now it's finally getting the love that it deserves. But again, when it becomes a collector's market, people expect more. The unfortunate side effect of that is that people expect more. And when they do, what they're looking for are the most minute, tiny little things that can turn them off. And then they take it upon themselves to hop up on the pulpit and try to bring in the masses to their side of being opposed to whatever this or whatever that. And I'm just sick of it all. I mean, I love that I have Unholy Rollers on DVD right now from Shout Factory as part of a full pack. A lot of people, the transfers aren't. Well, you know what? It is what it is. It's there. I can't get this anywhere else.
Preserving the film a lot.
That's it.
You're preserving in another like fucking 15, 20 years.
That's right.
And a lot of people don't realize that. And like even their Shout Factories are releasing Who Dares Wins. I know that's been on Arrow release, but that's a film that needs to be seen. It was one of Ronald Reagan's favorite films, and you get to watch it and you get to see why it was one of his favorite films. It's just. Even if it's been in the UK, that's another complaint that people release it. Oh, it's already been released overseas. Well, motherfucker, a lot of people don't have region-free Blu-ray players, so why don't you give it a fucking break? Who cares if Because I mean, I have to admit, I say things every once, because Scream Factory recently announced Squirm, and so I have owned the Arrow release. So I was like, okay, cool, no big deal. But I'm not fucking jumping on message boards saying, "Oh my God, Scream Factory's
that's what I don't get.
Another Arrow release." Well, but Scream Factory hasn't released it, you dumbass.
Yeah,
and 90% of the population.
I might not be running to the stands and like saying, "Oh my God, I get to watch this Jeff Lieberman movie on Blu-ray now." No, I already own it. I'll buy the Scream Factory just to support them. But I'm not gonna fucking hound people about it,
That's what I don't understand is when everyone becomes a preacher for anti.
Yeah.
If they invested that energy in promoting the things that they actually love as opposed to trashing the things that they don't, it's so much more powerful to share your passion for something than to just shit on something like anybody could.
Yeah.
Everyone shits. Not everyone creates things. and when you have an opportunity to have a platform where you can communicate with the world, like social media, these message boards on a smaller scale, share what you love. You're all there because you love something. Quit talking about what you hate so much. Quit investing so much in that because it's not serving anyone, you or the people that's listening. And ultimately, film is so personal for everyone. It's completely subjective. And what you see as being a horrible thing in this film, why do you think you need to then talk people out of the potential for them to enjoy it before they even have a chance? I'm sick of it. I'm burned out on it. And I do this every year at Rock and Shock. I appear at this convention up in Worcester, and I do this State of Horror panel. And this year the theme, it's what kicks off the whole event. This year the theme is going to be negativity in the horror community, because I think we need to start a greater conversation about this, because we're not only giving each other a hard time and drawing these weird lines in the sand among a very already limited fan base, but to the outside world, we just look like assholes when it becomes a bunch of guys throwing rocks at each other on the playground. So let's stop that. Let's get rid of that garbage, and let's start sharing and celebrating the things that we really enjoy, because ultimately that's what educates, that's what breeds evolution, that's what supports the future, as opposed to just looking at the past and giving it the finger. Let's do something productive with our time.
There you go.
Well, it's the same thing with us. I mean, when we started this thing, we wanted to base it around, Scream Factory releases, because, at the time, and not really at the time, but they are the ones that hit us most hard, because they were taking good care, good time, putting a lot of effort into these releases, but we still pay plenty of homage to other companies. We've mentioned Code Red on here, Vinegar Syndrome is talked about nonstop, Gorgon Video's coming back, And another thing, people like to pick labels that they stick up for. People are like, I'll only buy Code Red. I don't buy Scream Factory or Vinegar Syndrome because that's garbage.
Yeah.
Bitch, you like film, don't you?
That's it.
Cut that shit out. Like,
that's it.
I don't give a shit what label it's on. I'll buy it because I'll support them because I want to see more films released. And that's the thing that people don't get.
I want Death Spot, damn it. I want Death Spot. I don't care who puts it out.
If you're going to sit back and shit on things and, try to rally up the troops not to purchase anything, bitch, you're not going to get the film that you do want.
Yeah.
If you don't support Scream Factory all the time, and not saying, and no one's forcing you to buy all the films either. No one's forcing you to buy their releases. You just buy what you want. I mean, we're here to tell you that if you haven't seen it, you might want to check it out. Of course, always give something a chance. But the more you support them, any company, not just Scream Factory, but any company, we're going to get more from them, and maybe even bigger. Maybe they'll be in the fucking Warner Vaults or Lionsgate maybe one day, hopefully. But if we just sit back and we just do negativity of like Justin said, the bit rate on some Blu-ray, no one really gives a shit. And you want to do that, you're just tearing down what people are trying to build up, and you're actually not doing anything. And you just need to step off.
Totally. I mean, just today I popped into Ravenous to check out the video because people have been complaining about the quality. I ended up just watching almost the whole movie. Didn't even care about the video. I mean, it looks better than my crappy DVD looked. And I just sat back and enjoyed the movie for what it was.
Let me give you a great example. I mean, Body Bags is a good example, but it has Carpenter's name attached to it. So it's been a sort of hidden gem for a long time that a lot of people weren't even aware was there because of the limited video presence that it's had. I also produced a disc for Shout Factory, not Scream, but Shout, on Taint Girl.
Oh, okay.
And that's that's a film that not a lot of people, I mean, it had a bare bones DVD release and video release. It had a decent campaign to promote it when it came out on video, but it's always just kind of existed in this fringe world. But these guys, Cliff in particular, because he does production, he executive produces Shout as well. When he showed me a list of titles and said, which ones of these can you do something with, my fingers slammed onto the paper under Tank Girl, because it's one of the films that has such a dedicated fan base, a cult fan base around the world. It's a British thing too. So, I mean, it's also overseas. It's never seen the love that it deserves. And it also just so happens I was in the process several years prior of, I was working with the director, Rachel Talale, on a book about the making of the film. And so it's like you couldn't have shown up at a better time because I had all these connections and materials in hand. And I poured a lot into that disc. There's a lot of interviews on there. There's some neat press stuff that's included with it. And it's a gorgeous transfer. Source elements on everything, man. I'm really, really proud of that one. But that's going out on a limb. That's an example of a title that a lot of people would just shrug off. But these guys were willing to stand up and not put it as a multi-pack entry, as its own standalone release, and still give me a great budget to work with to give it all that it can be. They believed in that just as much as they believed in Prince of Darkness, as much as they believed in the next film. So that's the big difference.
Believe in the outing, though.
Well, keep in mind that there is a long list of what you want, then even when you get there, just like with Body Bags, if the materials aren't there, the materials aren't there.
No, I completely agree. I always say that because the outing is definitely one of my favorite films that they've released. But it's in that 4-pack. But I mean, I still have guess what? Still have the movie. I still have a really, really good DVD transfer, even though it is 4-pack. Like, it doesn't, it's not bad, but people need to appreciate that just a little bit more than, because like I said, people either shrug it off or, they want to trash it. And I'm glad you brought that up because, I mean, we kind of hint on that on the show. Quite a bit because Scream Factory, since they are bigger and they are getting bigger, there is a little bit more negativity coming out of the woodwork now. And I mean that's one of the reasons why we like to do this show is to actually discuss it. And we're not afraid to bring up a topic. We like to talk about the transfers. Because we want to know. I mean, we don't have all the answers. Sometimes we do. But like you cleared up the audio thing. I mean, that's a very, very good explanation. And I don't care if you're sitting behind your computer on a forum. There's your fucking answer. So stop bitching about it.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that there is so much criticism right off the bat with things. It's almost like everyone's poised to be negative right away.
Yeah. When
something's announced, like, I can't wait to the next announcement so I can trash it. And then the Halloween box set, again, of course, you're not going to please everybody, but they do what they can.
Don't even get me started on Halloween.
Well, I think part of it too is because once I started learning about the process on bringing a movie from obscurity, some obscure VHS release, bringing it to a Blu-ray. Mm-hmm. Once I started understanding that process, things started clicking, and I think now there's a lot more. I get it. I get the process, and I get that. In a perfect world, we'd love to have a perfect, pristine, amazing Blu-ray copy of our favorite movie. But once you understand, film elements, how audio distortion occurs, and that you can't fix audio distortion if it's there on the master, it's there. You can't undistort audio.
Yeah, you might not have 1,000 film elements to pull from.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, on some of these, they'll accumulate a number of, if they have to rely on prints, let's say, which is always like a worst case scenario. Uh-huh. They're not just going to use one print. They're going to try to track down 4 or 5 different prints and then piece together the best reels and everything, so it looks as good as it can. There is no such thing as a situation where they go, whatever we got, we got. There's always the extra steps and effort put into maximizing the experience for the audience, period. So, because what company would intentionally release a piece of shit other than Echo Bridge? No, I'm just kidding. I actually appreciate what they do. I like a lot of their multi-packs. Those are fun.
Dude, but they got better. They got better as they went along.
Echo Bridge all the time.
Oh, well, but we all buy their 20 packs, like 20 horror. Like, oh my God, are you serious? I'm not going to get the hearse anywhere else right now. So sure, I'll buy that piece of crap. But anyway, there is never
it's film preservation. It pushed it along more,
Exactly, and nobody's going. And these guys are strictly preservation is the perfect word for it, because this is archiving cinema history, and the fact that someone can get up on a high horse and start pointing down at wagging their finger at anybody who's trying to do that when this person isn't. A lot of these critics are out there. I mean, who are they? What discs have they produced that have a flawless bit rate from front to back, and where there's no specs in the come on.
No. Well, hey, I wanted to probably move into our top 5 anthology lists.
Yeah. So I have my top 20.
Oh shit, top 20. God damn you! All right.
I said, don't you blame the movies. Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative.
It's funny because when we started this, I always had more than 5, and you guys shit on me. And then I finally was like, you know what? They're right. Let's trim time. So I started making top 5, and then you motherfuckers all have top 10s and honorable mentions and bullshit. Well, you really fucked me over on this, Sean.
Well, you don't got to worry about that today, because I've only seen like 6 or 7 anthology films. So let me go and rattle through my list, and then I'll give you guys the go ahead here. I have there's a lot of anthology films that are on my must-watch list. I think on Netflix, between Netflix and Amazon, I got like 3 or 4.
So you're just making your list longer already.
I know. So I'm not even going to mention them. But anyway. So these are in no particular order because it's hard for me to rank anthology flicks. So I'll just roll down with what I got. Trick or Treat, the Mike Daughtry.
Yeah. Daughtry, I think.
Film. I watched this one ever since it came out. I watch this every Halloween. It's the last thing I do.
You also mention on every podcast.
But exactly. It's awesome.
No, it's really good.
And it just sets the mood for Halloween. I get a pumpkin ale, and everyone's in bed. I watch this, and I go to bed. So that's my yearly Halloween thing. Ritual. Next on the list is Creepshow. and I just love this. Is probably the first anthology film that I ever saw, so it's just great. I mean, everything kind of lives up to Creepshow, and I actually just got the Waxworks vinyl soundtrack, which is amazing.
I always compare Creepshow and Body Bags a lot because it has that it has those scary, horror elements, and it also has that comedy aspect too. So, but yeah, great flick.
And then next would be Creepshow 2. Like I said, I'm pulling for some limited stuff here, but Creepshow 2
really good.
I love Creepshow 2. It's a lot of fun. And then next up would be Body Bags. I just watched it and I love it. It's great. And then my fifth one if I had to choose, fifth one would be VHS, just because I haven't seen VHS 2. And I'm assuming if I see VHS 2, I'll probably like it more.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those are that's my top 5, my very limited top 5 anthology flicks. So let me turn over to the real film enthusiasts on the podcast here.
Justin.
No. Okay.
All right, Justin, what do you got?
Yeah, I agree on a number of those. Trick or Treat is fantastic. Trick or Treat is the essence of the Halloween season.
Yes.
As horror fans, it's not just about watching the movies during that time of year. It's about you. I love that you said, I grab a pumpkin ale, because we all have something like that. It's having, Yankee Candle has their annual, they have this patchouli scent that's like always Halloween themed. And last year they had these cool black glass skeleton jars that the candles were in. I mean, there's so many elements to that season that are essential for us to really enjoy it. And that film really embodies that. Encapsulates everything that we love about it. So absolutely there. Creepshow/Creepshow 2. I can't watch one without the other. They're essentials. I put Body Bags on that list. Ever since I was young, I've really cared for that movie a lot. Tales from the Dark Side, the movie.
Nice.
Another one. It's very good. Twilight Zone, the movie, also has a couple very effective sequences, remade from the series, but nonetheless super good. Very fun. Two Evil Eyes, which is the Argento and Romero tag team. Sort of Romero's last dead work at that point, after he had done Dawn, Day, and Night, and he hadn't yet returned to doing more zombie stuff. And this is a nice little nod to his past at that time, which I always thought, man, people need to realize this. There is more Romero zombie work, and it's in Two Evil Eyes. And Argento's segment is solid as well. And then Trilogy of Terror is another one. But even going back to the classics, Tales from the Dark Side, Tales from the Crypt, Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, Twice Told Tales, all of these. And the magic in the anthology is that you're not weighed down with an hour and a half of the same story. Mm-hmm. And you can take a concept that's lighter, that might not have the depth, and you can have a lot of fun with it for a good 15 or 20 minutes. And so it's refreshing. Every time the segment comes around, you have something new to look forward to. And that's what works so well with these. And also worth mentioning, you said no honorable mentions, but I'm going to say TV shows like Tales from the Dark Side, Tales from the Crypt, and Monsters, Freddy's Nightmares, Friday the 13th. These are all essentially anthologies, because every week you're getting a new little story full of new faces and a new approach to the craft. And so that's what makes those great. And I love, by the way, side note, that Monsters is now on DVD, the complete series. We have Tales from the Dark Side, complete series that's out there. And of course, Tales from the Crypt has been out for a long time, but really neat to, anthology work there. So there's my massive list of 5.
Freddy's Nightmares would be nice to have.
That would.
Two seasons of that.
Yeah, and the pilot for that is fantastic.
Oh, dude, it's so good. It's a little prequel to Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, we never got that in the series. We never got that moment, the backstory on him.
Yeah, we definitely get the full story and why. Mm-hmm. Pretty sweet. I always like that pilot episode.
Yeah, it's really good.
So I guess it's my turn.
All right, Brad.
Top 20. There's one that I want to focus that's extremely, I've never met anybody that has seen this movie, and I've asked countless times. It's a film called House of the Dead, not the Uwe Boll film. Came out in the 80s. It was titled Alien Zone as well, and I don't know why the fuck they called it Aliens. I really don't. But it's basically just, it's an anthology, and I believe it's on DVD on like some kind of weird multi-pack that probably Mill Creek has put out. But I don't know. I've heard it's on DVD, but I've never found it on a. But I believe it's titled Alien Zone on like a sci-fi thing. But it's really good. There's a very terrifying segment with children on that one. It's very much like The Brood. It feels like a little Cronenberg short, but it's really good. Body Bags is on there, of course. Nightmares. Always been a really big fan of that. Christina Rains, of course, is in that, which she's one of my all-time favorites.
Code Red put that out, didn't they, recently?
Night. That is a different one, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Not the Christina Rains one. They actually Code Red just put that on Blu-ray.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's not the same.
I'm probably mixing them up. Yeah, I think it was just Nightmare. Come to think of it, yeah.
Yeah. This is Nightmares with Christina Rains. Pretty cool. There's James Marsden and it's the guy from Office Space, Rob Atkinson. Is that his name? Anyways, Amy Smart, a little low budget thing called Campfire Tales. It's pretty cool. Two Evil Eyes.
Oh, I like that one. Yeah, Campfire Tales is good.
Yeah, Campfire Tales is really, really fun. Very comparable to the Willies that also came out in the 90s, just on VHS, I believe. A little film called Chillers, pretty cool. Cat's Eye, of course. Always been a big fan of that. A very underrated one that a lot of people also haven't seen is a movie called Terrorgram. Very, very cool little flick. From Beyond the Grave, which is also on Warner Archive, released that one. Dead Time Stories, one of my all-time favorite VHS covers. Always been a big fan of that. Tales from the Dark Side, of course. Book of the Dead, always a favorite of mine. H.P. Lovecraft stories and stuff. Huge guilty pleasure for mine is Tales from the Hood.
Yeah, much better than people remember it being.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, it's all around fun, but I mean, it's just. I love that thing. Of course, the old Tales from the Crypt movie. Always dug that. VHS 2. There you go, Sean. That was. I'm getting my top 5 right here. VHS 2. I think it was 1974. Asylum is really, really good. Doesn't get much love. Of course, Creepshow 2, and Trick or Treat. And the last one was there. So I think our top 5 really overlap. This is the best of the best.
Totally.
Trick or Treat's definitely one of those things that they hit the nail on the head. It's just all around the way they intertwine everything. It's just a great and fun movie.
Nice. And Brad, I'm surprised you didn't mention Night Train to Terror, Vinegar Syndrome release.
See, the thing is,
I think that's more of a batshit one.
I kind of like that movie.
It is, but the thing is that those films are longer, and it's just I always look at because I have the Nightmare. Was it the Nightmare that the Nightmare Never Ends? Is that?
That's right. Because these were cut. These were the Night Train to Terror is like 3 feature-length movies that they cut down to throw into this. To create an anthology film.
And God and the Devil playing chess on a train. Come on.
Yeah.
I totally forgot that when I was writing my top 5. Since it's so limited, I would have at least added that.
Yeah. See, I like Night Train to Terror, but I like the features a lot too. And I have 2 of them. I think the other one is kind of only available like online. You can people are sharing the original thing before they cut it up. I mean, it's all like out of fucking sequence and shit. But the Nightmare That Never Ends is really, really good, and I think that's the final segment in Night Train to Fuck, I can't speak. Night Train to Terror. I get so excited when I think about that because it's actually released on Blu-ray, and it's one of those titles that you're like, what the fuck, really?
Yeah.
Like of all titles, like, and I mean that's of course what Vinegar Syndrome does. Is they were like, oh, fuck all these popular ones. Let's get the really, really odd ones that no one really knows.
That's great.
Share them.
All right. Well, that'll do it for this week's show. Justin, I want to give you a couple minutes here to let people know if there's anything you're currently working on or anything you need to you'd like to plug. Now's your chance to do so.
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me on. It's been a lot of fun. And for this whole show existing, I think it's a real testament to the brand that there can be an entire show dedicated to what these guys are doing. And huge props to Cliff and Jeff, the heart behind this whole thing, and for what they continue to do and how they push for the things that fans want, because they're ultimately fans. So you guys recognizing that and dedicating so much of your time to it, as I know that it's a real honor for them. And thanks to everyone who's supporting all these releases. As of, for me, Sleepaway Camp just came out. That's one that's like Body Bags, where I brokered the deal, brought the film to the table and all that, and then did all the bonus features and everything. And the feedback has been really positive on that. So if you haven't picked that up yet, you can go to Shout Factory's website, shoutfactory.com, and you can order one of those up. Outside of that, I mean, I continue. I'm still writing for Fangoria. We have a Scream Factory issue coming up that I have a number of features in that I'm in the middle of writing right now, and so you're going to get a lot of behind the scenes information on how this whole process works. Every one of their titles is going to be visited upon, and a lot of information for fans out there, and not just for fans of Scream Factory, for fans of these films, because a lot of these movies never even appeared in the pages of Fango. And, you know, I mean, that's how deep their catalog gets into things. Or maybe they were just mentioned once when they first came out. Now they're going to have entire pages dedicated to them. So everything's going to be looked at and talked about, and I'm doing the features that are a part of it. So keep your eye open for that. I think you can pre-order that already at fangoria.com.
Is there a time, because we would like to feature that on the show for sure whenever it comes out.
I can't remember the release date of it, but I know it's limited to like 2,000 or something copies of the magazine. I'll have to look, and after we get off the line, I'll shoot you guys some info once I find it out.
We'll make sure we put it in the show notes.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely get on board with the pre-order of that magazine. That's going to be a lot of fun. And just outside of that, I have some film stuff happening. Just keep up with me on Facebook at Justin Beahm, Beahm, and you can see what's happening. There's a number of films that I'm in that are coming out or about to be released. Shooting a film in October called Heartland that I'm one of the leads in, and that all happened quite accidentally. I'm definitely not an actor by any means. You just get pulled into some things, you know. So, yeah, Facebook, I guess, is where you'd be best to find me, or justinbeahm.com, where I'm starting to build a website with some of my old articles and new thoughts on things and all my adventures.
Very nice. Well, you can find the show, of course, on Twitter, Scream_cast. Music for this podcast is provided by Wolfmen of Mars. Go to wolfmenofmars.bandcamp.com and check out their music there. Also, you can find our show over at thescreamcast.com or at nerdly.co.uk. And we'd like to thank them for posting our show every Monday. Myself, you can find me, Sean C. DeRager, on Twitter. And if you don't know how to spell that by now, I don't know. Just go to thescreamcast.com. You'll find me there. And Brad, where can people find you?
They can find me sitting every fucking week saying the same goddamn thing. I'm at Brad F. Henderson on Twitter.
There you go. There may be a new listener tonight that just heard it, and now they know where to find you.
If you're a new listener, you're going to hear this again and again on every show from the future, if you haven't given up already.
It's on every single podcast I listen to. They do the same thing. All right. Anyway.
Would you jump off a bridge if other people were jumping off bridges, Sean? Yeah, you would.
Yes, I would. All right, Justin, thanks again, man, for spending your time talking with us about all that you do and about Body Bags. Been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
And all of you have a great. I'm gonna do this over. Edit here. Hold on. Okay. All right. And all of you have a great week. We will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Oh, don't tell me you're leaving. The party's just begun.
Did you forget forget what we're going to talk about yet?
No.
Is that...
Dramatic pause. Dramatic pause, right?
There's dramatic pause?
Yeah.
Well, that's a really nice intro. All
Thank
the hard
you.
work I put into this shit.
Thank you.